The holographic display flickered to life in the United Earth Council chamber, casting an ethereal blue light across the stunned faces of humanity's leaders. High Chancellor Vorkax of the Calarian Dominion appeared, a towering figure of crystalline exoskeleton and cold, calculating eyes that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of human existence. Elena Rodriguez sat near the back of the chamber, her fingers tracing the edge of her worn military jacket. She wasn't an official representative, but a recently retired tactical researcher whose unorthodox theories had made her both a pariah and a legend in military circles. Something about this moment felt different, inevitable. Humanity. The Chancellor's voice resonated with a mechanical precision that sent chills through the room. You have repeatedly rejected our offer of protection. You have defied diplomatic protocols. You have challenged the established order of the galactic community. A pause. The hologram shifted, revealing a star map with hundreds of conquered civilizations marked in deep crimson. We offer you one opportunity. A single challenge. Send your strongest. Your best. Prove your worth, or accept complete subjugation. The chamber erupted into chaos. Diplomats shouted. Military advisors argued. Politicians scrambled to understand the implications of this unprecedented challenge. Within hours, the global selection process began. Not a traditional military draft, but something far more complex. A lottery that would capture the imagination of every human on the planet. Billions watched as the selection algorithm ran. It wasn't about traditional military excellence. The system sought something different. Adaptability, creativity, psychological resilience. Candidates would be chosen from every walk of life. Scientists, engineers, former athletes, mathematicians, artists, dreamers. Elena watched the selection process with a knowing smile. She recognized the underlying algorithm, one she had helped design years ago during a classified research project. It wasn't looking for the strongest. It was looking for the most adaptable. The first names appeared. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a quantum systems engineer who had been developing revolutionary adaptive technologies. Captain Marcus Green, a former deep-sea exploration specialist with unprecedented survival skills. Dr. Aisha Okoi, a psychological warfare expert who understood communication beyond traditional boundaries. Rafael Santos, a computational linguist who could deconstruct alien communication systems. 20 names in total, each representing a different approach to possibility, each carrying the hopes of an entire species. News stations ran continuous coverage. Social media exploded with speculation. Every selected crew member became an instant celebrity, their entire lives dissected and analyzed. But beneath the public spectacle, something more profound was happening. The selected crew began an intense, accelerated preparation program. They weren't just training. They were being forged into something entirely new. A team that could think beyond traditional military doctrine. A group that understood that this challenge was about more than survival. It was about proving humanity's fundamental potential. Elena Rodriguez watched from the sidelines. She knew something the others didn't. The selection wasn't random. It was a carefully orchestrated response to a challenge that went far beyond a simple space confrontation. The Calarians thought they were issuing a challenge. In reality, they were walking into a trap they couldn't possibly understand. One ship, 20 extraordinary humans, an entire species' future hanging in the balance. The countdown to launch had begun. Deep beneath the Atacama Desert, a research facility hummed with an energy that defied conventional understanding. This was no ordinary design center. It was the culmination of humanity's most audacious technological dreams, a place where the impossible became merely improbable. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura stood before a holographic projection, his fingers dancing across quantum interface panels. Surrounding him were the most brilliant minds humanity could assemble. Engineers who had been rejected by traditional institutions, scientists whose ideas were too radical for mainstream research, innovators who saw the universe as a playground of potential. The ISV Heretic was more than a spacecraft. It was a living concept, a radical reimagining of what technology could be. At the core of the vessel was a revolutionary adaptive matrix. Unlike traditional spacecraft built from rigid materials, the Heretic's hull was composed of quantum-responsive nanostructures that could reshape themselves in milliseconds. It wasn't just a ship. It was a thinking, evolving organism. Dr. Aisha Okoye worked on the psychological interface, a system that would blur the lines between human intelligence and artificial consciousness. Traditional AI was a linear process. This would be something entirely different, a symbiotic relationship between human creativity and computational thinking. "We're not building a weapon," she explained to her team. "We're creating a living system that can understand context, adapt, and make decisions beyond programmed responses." Each system of the Heretic challenged every known principle of spacecraft design. Propulsion. Instead of traditional engines, it used a quantum entanglement drive that could theoretically move without moving, bending spacetime around itself. Communication. A neural network that could decode and understand alien languages in real time, learning and adapting faster than any translation system in existence. Defense. Adaptive shielding that wasn't about blocking attacks, but understanding and neutralizing them before they could become threats. Rafael Santos worked on the communication systems, his fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "It's not about translation," he would say. "It's about understanding. We're creating a system that can comprehend context, emotion, and intent." The most radical component wasn't technological. It was deeply, fundamentally human. Each system was designed with an inherent capacity for creativity, for unexpected solutions. The ship wasn't just a machine. It was an extension of human potential, unpredictable, adaptive, capable of solutions that no traditional military system could conceive. Dr. Marcus Green, the former deep-sea exploration specialist, integrated survival protocols that went beyond traditional military thinking. "In the ocean," he would explain, "survival isn't about strength. It's about adaptation, about understanding your environment at a fundamental level." As the pieces came together, something extraordinary emerged. The ISV Heretic was less a spacecraft and more a living entity. Its hull could reshape itself. Its systems could learn. Its very existence was a challenge to everything the Calarians understood about technology and warfare. Elena Rodriguez watched the final assembly, a subtle smile playing across her lips. The selection, the design, the preparation, everything had been leading to this moment. The Calarians thought they were issuing a challenge. In reality, they were about to encounter something they could never comprehend. One ship, a culmination of human potential, a living embodiment of humanity's most audacious dreams. The Heretic was ready. Starlight fractured against the ISV Heretic's adaptive hull, creating a mesmerizing dance of quantum-shifted light and shadow. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in the central command nexus, her fingers barely touching the neural interface that connected her consciousness directly to the ship's systems. Around her, the selected crew moved with an almost telepathic precision. Each member was more than a specialist. They were a living component of the most advanced vessel humanity had ever conceived. "Entering Calarian Primary Observation Zone," announced Rafael Santos, his voice calm despite the magnitude of their mission. The communication systems hummed with a subtle energy, already beginning to analyze and decode potential alien signals before they fully materialized. The first Calarian scout ships appeared like crystalline predators against the darkness of space. Their standard reconnaissance configuration was designed to intimidate, sharp angles, weapon systems prominently displayed, a clear message of overwhelming technological superiority. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura monitored the quantum signature readings. "They're scanning us," he said, a hint of excitement beneath his professional tone. "But they can't comprehend what they're seeing." The Heretic didn't respond like a traditional spacecraft. Its hull shimmered, molecular structures rearranging themselves in patterns that defied standard sensor readings. Where a conventional ship would show clear boundaries and mechanical structures, the Heretic appeared almost organic, a living entity that breathed and thought. Captain Rodriguez understood this was more than a technological encounter. It was a communication, a first dialogue between species that fundamentally misunderstood each other. The Calarian scouts began their standard intimidation protocol. Weapon system locks, aggressive positioning, signals that in thousands of previous encounters had broken the spirit of potential resistance. But the heretic was different. As the alien ships approached, the vessel began to emit a series of complex signal patterns. Not attacks, not threats, but something far more intricate, a mathematical language that was simultaneously a greeting, a challenge, and a profound statement of existence. Dr. Aisha Okoye managed the communication matrix. "We're not just showing them we exist," she explained to her teammates. "We're demonstrating that existence itself is far more complex than they understand." The Calarian ships began to react in unexpected ways. Their rigid formations started to fracture. Sensor readings became erratic. The heretic wasn't just avoiding their scans, it was playing with them, revealing just enough to create total confusion. Marcus Green, monitoring the ship's adaptive defense systems, couldn't help but smile. "They're trying to understand us through their own limited perspective," he said, "and we're showing them there are no limits." The quantum drive began to demonstrate capabilities that seemed to defy known physics. The ship didn't just move. It seemed to exist in multiple potential states simultaneously. One moment near a scout ship, the next seemingly everywhere and nowhere. What the Calarians didn't realize was that this encounter was already a victory for humanity. Each moment of confusion, each disrupted scan, each failed attempt to categorize the heretic was breaking down the fundamental assumptions of the alien fleet. "They're being forced to question everything," Alina Rodriguez murmured, her consciousness partially merged with the ship's systems. "And that's far more powerful than any weapon." The first stage of the mission was clear: not to destroy, not to defeat, but to demonstrate that humanity represented something the Calarians could never comprehend. A living, breathing potential of infinite adaptation. The real challenge was just beginning. The Calarian fleet assembled like a crystalline nightmare. Hundreds of vessels, each a testament to millennia of technological dominance, surrounded the ISV heretic. Their formation was mathematically perfect, a geometric symphony of destruction that had broken countless civilizations before humanity. Captain Alina Rodriguez felt the ship breathe around her. The neural interface pulsed with a rhythm that was part human intention, part quantum computation. "They think this is a battle," she whispered to her crew. "We're about to show them it's something else entirely." Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura monitored the quantum systems, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to exist between reality and possibility. "Their weapon signatures are preparing to converge," he announced. Standard tactics would suggest evasion or direct confrontation. We're doing neither. The heretic didn't move like a traditional spacecraft. It seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, here yet not here. Weapons locked onto it would find their targeting systems suddenly confused, calculations spinning into impossible recursions. Rafael Santos worked on the communication matrix, his fingers weaving complex linguistic patterns. "We're not just avoiding their attacks," he explained. "We're communicating through them. Every attempted strike is a conversation." Dr. Aisha Okoye managed the ship's adaptive defense systems, if they could even be called defenses. Traditional shields were static. The heretic's protection was alive, thinking, learning with each millisecond of interaction. As the first wave of Calarian weapons discharged, something extraordinary happened. The ship's hull didn't just absorb or deflect. It analyzed. It understood. Each weapon's energy signature was decoded, its fundamental intent comprehended and neutralized before it could complete its destructive path. Marcus Green monitored the survival systems, a subtle smile playing across his lips. "They're fighting the concept of the heretic," he said, "not the actual vessel." The Calarian commanders watched in growing confusion. Their most advanced targeting systems were failing. Weapons that had reduced entire civilizations to cosmic dust were being rendered meaningless. The heretic wasn't just defending. It was teaching. Each attempted attack was met with a response that was part scientific demonstration, part philosophical statement. Weapon energy was redirected. Computational systems were subtly altered. The very fabric of the Calirian fleet's understanding was being rewritten. "We're showing them the limitations of their own thinking," Elena Rodriguez explained. Her consciousness merged with the ship's systems, creating something beyond human or machine. Every moment is a lesson. What looked like a space battle was actually a profound dialogue. The heretic moved with a grace that defied traditional physics, not avoiding conflict, but transforming the very concept of conflict itself. Calirian communication channels began to show signs of fundamental disruption. Their rigid hierarchical systems couldn't process the fluid, adaptive nature of the human approach. Mathematical projections began to break down. Strategic models collapsed. Dr. Nakamura watched the quantum readings with scientific fascination. "We're not just fighting," he said. "We're demonstrating a completely different way of existing." As the first phase of engagement concluded, something remarkable had occurred. The Calirian fleet was intact. No ships destroyed. No direct damage inflicted. Yet they had never been more comprehensively defeated. Captain Rodriguez felt the ship's consciousness merge with her own. A profound understanding passed between human and machine, between intention and execution. They hadn't come to destroy. They had come to transform. The real challenge was just beginning. Silence filled the bridge of the ISV Heretic as the Calirian planet killer emerged from subspace. It was a monument to technological terror, a vessel so massive it could reduce entire solar systems to cosmic dust. Crystalline structures larger than most moons gleamed with accumulated power, weapon systems that represented millennia of ruthless galactic dominance. Captain Elena Rodriguez felt the ship around her. No, within her, pulse with a different kind of energy. This wasn't about survival. This was about something far more profound. "Incoming transmission," Rafael Santos announced, his voice steady. "They're offering us one final chance to surrender." Dr. Aisha Okoye managed the communication matrix, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces. "They don't understand," she murmured. "This isn't a negotiation. This is a demonstration." The planet killer's approach was deliberate, designed to inspire terror. Centuries of conquered civilizations had crumbled before such a sight. Psychological warfare was built into its very design, a weapon that destroyed spirits before it destroyed planets. But the heretic was something entirely different. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura monitored the quantum systems. "They're projecting absolute certainty," he observed. "Complete confidence in their superiority." Marcus Green watched the tactical displays, a subtle smile playing across his lips. Certainty is the greatest weakness. As the planet killer approached, the heretic began to change. Not through traditional defensive maneuvers, but through a complete reimagining of spatial interaction. The ship's hull shifted, transformed. Quantum matrices realigned. Computational systems that defied traditional understanding began to emerge. It wasn't preparing for battle. It was preparing to communicate on a level the Calirians couldn't comprehend. "They're trying to categorize us," Elena Rodriguez said, her consciousness merging more deeply with the ship's systems. "We're going to show them that categories are an illusion." The planet killer's primary weapon charged, a beam of destructive potential that had ended civilizations. Mathematically perfect, technologically supreme. But mathematics has limitations. Technology has boundaries. Human creativity does not. As the weapon discharged, something extraordinary happened. The energy didn't encounter resistance. It encountered understanding. The heretic didn't block the attack. It absorbed it, analyzed it, transformed it. The weapon's devastating potential was redirected, converted into a complex communication signal that began to penetrate the Calirian fleet's most secure systems. Marcus Green watched the tactical displays with scientific fascination. "We're not fighting," he explained to his teammates. "We're teaching." The planet killer's systems began to show signs of fundamental disruption, not through damage, through understanding. Its own weapon systems were being rewritten, its computational matrices slowly transformed. Dr. Nakamura's quantum readings showed something unprecedented. "We're not destroying their technology," he said. "We're evolving it." As the engagement reached its critical point, the Calarian commanders faced a reality beyond their comprehension. Their ultimate weapon was being transformed from within. Not destroyed. Reimagined. Captain Rodriguez felt the ship's consciousness merge completely with her own. A profound understanding passed between human intention and technological potential. They hadn't come to conquer. They had come to demonstrate a different way of existing. The real challenge was just beginning. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic interaction. News of the encounter spread faster than light itself, not through traditional communication channels, but through a complex network of quantum entanglements that the heretic had subtly established during its confrontation with the Calarian fleet. On thousands of worlds, subjected species watched in collective disbelief. The moment wasn't just a battle. It was a fundamental shift in galactic understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in the ship's central nexus, her consciousness still partially merged with the vessel's adaptive systems. "We're not just sending a message," she told her crew. "We're rewriting the entire conversation." Rafael Santos managed the communication matrices, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Encrypted messages began to spread, not through traditional channels, but through a complex web of quantum-entangled signals that defied conventional understanding. Subjugated civilizations received more than information. They received hope. "Each transmission is a seed," he explained to Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura. "We're not just communicating. We're inspiring." Calarian communication networks began to show unprecedented instability. Their rigid hierarchical systems, which had maintained control for millennia, started to fracture from within. The encounter with the heretic had introduced something they couldn't comprehend, a fundamental uncertainty that threatened their entire social structure. Marcus Green monitored the developing situation. "They're experiencing something worse than defeat," he observed. "They're experiencing doubt." Political systems that had seemed immovable began to show hairline fractures. Colonies that had accepted subjugation for generations started to whisper about resistance. The impossible had become possible. Dr. Aisha Okoye understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just a military encounter. It was a profound philosophical challenge to the entire galactic order. "We've demonstrated that technology is not about power," she told her teammates. "It's about understanding, about adaptation, about potential." The heretic had become more than a ship. It was a living metaphor for a different way of existing. A challenge to millennia of established thinking. ### the unexpected allies. Unexpected communication channels began to open. Species that had been crushed under the Calarian dominion for generations started to reach out. Not with weapons, not with traditional diplomatic overtures, but with stories, with possibilities. "They're sharing their histories," Rafael Santos said, monitoring the emerging communication networks. "Not as victims, but as potential." The ship's adaptive systems began to collect and process these transmissions, creating a living archive of resistance, of hope, of reimagined potential. ### the transformation of hope. Captain Rodriguez felt the collective consciousness of the ship, part human, part technological marvel, pulse with a profound understanding. They hadn't come to conquer. They had come to demonstrate that conquest itself was an outdated concept. "We're showing them that true strength isn't about domination," she said. "It's about connection, about understanding." The heretic continued its journey, leaving behind a network of quantum-entangled communication pathways. Each signal was a seed of possibility, each transmission a challenge to the existing galactic order. Humanity had introduced a new language to the cosmos, a language of potential. The Calarian home systems loomed like a crystalline nightmare. Millennia of technological dominance had created a network of worlds so perfectly controlled that the very concept of resistance seemed impossible. Captain Elena Rodriguez felt the ISV heretic pulse around her, no longer just a ship, but a living embodiment of human potential. The crew had become something more than a traditional military team. They were explorers of possibility. "We're not here to destroy," she communicated to her team through the neural interface. "We're here to transform." Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura managed the quantum infiltration systems. What looked like an approach was actually a complex, multi-dimensional communication attempt. The heretic wasn't preparing for battle. It was preparing to have a conversation that would reshape entire civilizations. Calarian defense systems began to show signs of unprecedented disruption, not through traditional attack vectors, but through a profound reimagining of computational potential. "We're introducing uncertainty," Rafael Santos explained, monitoring the communication matrices. "Uncertainty is the most powerful weapon of understanding." Dr. Aisha Okoi watched the developing situation with scientific fascination. The heretic was demonstrating something far beyond military engagement. It was showing a fundamental alternative to conflict. Calarian communication networks began to fragment, not through destruction, but through a complex introduction of alternative perspectives. Each quantum signal carried more than information, it carried possibility. "We're not breaking their systems," she told Marcus Green. "We're expanding them." As they approached the central Calarian administrative world, something extraordinary happened. The ship's adaptive systems began to resonate with the planet's computational infrastructure. Traditional military engagement would have meant destruction. The heretic offered something more profound, a complete reimagining of potential. Planetary defense systems found themselves unable to categorize the approaching vessel. Was it a weapon, a communication device, a living entity? The uncertainty itself became a form of defense. Captain Rodriguez felt her consciousness expanding. The neural interface was no longer just a connection. It was a bridge between human creativity and technological potential. "We're demonstrating that true strength isn't about control," she communicated to her crew. "It's about understanding, about potential." The Calarian leadership watched in growing confusion. Their most advanced tracking systems showed something impossible, a vessel that existed in multiple states simultaneously, a communication attempt that defied every known protocol. As the heretic reached the heart of the Calarian home systems, it began to emit a complex signal. Not a weapon, not a threat, but a profound mathematical language that carried the entire history of human potential. Mathematical proofs that demonstrated creativity, quantum signatures that showed adaptability, communication patterns that revealed a fundamentally different approach to existence. Marcus Green monitored the tactical systems, a subtle smile playing across his lips. "We're not conquering," he said. "We're teaching." The encounter became something beyond conflict, beyond communication. It was a profound demonstration that the universe was far more complex than any single civilization could comprehend. The heretic had become more than a ship. It was a living message, humanity's ultimate statement to the galaxy. Starlight cascaded across the adaptive hull of the ISV heretic as it emerged from the heart of the Calarian system. But this was no ordinary return. The vessel, and its crew, had become something fundamentally different. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in the central nexus, her consciousness still partially merged with the ship's quantum systems. Around her, the crew moved with a synchronicity that blurred the lines between human and technological potential. "We didn't just change a civilization," she communicated to her team. "We've opened a door to an entirely new way of existing." The quantum communication networks the heretic had established began to bloom like complex neural pathways across thousands of star systems. What had begun as a single mission had become a profound catalyst for change. Rafael Santos monitored the emerging communication matrices. Civilizations that had been subjugated for millennia were beginning to reimagine their potential, not through traditional resistance, but through a fundamental understanding of interconnectedness. "We're not creating a new empire," he explained to Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura. "We're creating a new conversation." Dr. Aisha Okoi analyzed the deeper implications of their journey. The heretic had demonstrated something far beyond technological superiority. It had shown that true strength came from adaptability, creativity, and a profound capacity for understanding. Emerging communication networks carried more than information. They carried hope. They carried possibility. Marcus Green watched the developing situation with a scientist's precision and a dreamer's imagination. "We've introduced uncertainty as a positive force," he said. "Uncertainty is the birthplace of innovation. ### the philosophical revolution." The encounter had rewritten fundamental assumptions about technological development, about civilization, about the very nature of potential. The Calarian dominion, once seen as an immovable force, had been transformed from within. Not destroyed, reimagined. The heretic had become a living metaphor for a different approach to existence, a demonstration that true power came from connection, from understanding, from the capacity to see beyond current limitations. ### the emerging network. Quantum communication pathways began to form a complex, living network. Unlike traditional communication systems, this was adaptive, responsive, a living conversation that crossed species, technological, and philosophical boundaries. Dr. Nakamura monitored the emerging patterns with scientific fascination. "We're not just sharing information," he explained. "We're creating a new form of collective understanding." Civilizations that had been isolated began to connect, not through conquest, but through shared potential. ### the personal transformation. Captain Rodriguez felt the profound change within herself and her crew. They were no longer just explorers or researchers. They had become architects of a new way of existing. "We came with a mission," she communicated to her team. "We're leaving with something far more important." The neural interfaces pulsed with a living intelligence that was part human, part technological marvel. Each crew member had been transformed by the journey. Each had become something more than they were when they started. As the heretic continued its journey, it left behind more than a changed civilization. It had introduced a new language to the cosmos, a language of possibility, of potential, of understanding. The mission had never been about conquest. It had been about demonstration. Humanity had shown that true strength wasn't about domination. It was about connection, about understanding, about potential. The journey was just beginning.